Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 211. Are you ready to join the clan? Today we have Hayk Tadevosyan, a proud father, husband, deacon, athletic and entrepreneur, passionate about serving his community and inspiring others to reach their goals. With the years of coaching and developing his top producing teams, he has developed great joy in coaching and consulting other business owners. Hello, Hayk.
Good morning in Washington and good afternoon to London.
Hello. I know the clan is anxious to hear your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my clan a little bit about your background, about what you did before you started your own online business?
Yeah, sure. So my family, actually my father and I moved to United States in the year 2001. That was the Armenian dream, right? A bunch of Armenian families were trying to leave the country because of some economical problems. So we moved here in 2001, my father and I. We were just looking to figure out what we can do. We didn't have a plan. It's not like we came with a business plan thinking, here's what we're going to do. We did everything from construction. We worked in pizzerias, delivered newspaper, cleaned toilets, you name it, right? Construction was one of the things that stuck around for a while. So my father and I, naturally, if you don't speak English, you don't really have a residency or connections, you gravitate towards doing labor work, right? So we did construction where we would paint homes, build walls, work with a large construction company. I moved around a lot. So my father and I moved to different states, different cities. I went to like 8-9 different schools just because we needed to work and send money back home. At the time, we had left my mother, my older sister, my younger brother back in Armenia. Little we knew how much money and resources it takes to hire an attorney. So it took us about 7 years to bring the rest of the family home. So I grew up from age 13 to 20 without my mom, my brother, and my sister. As you can imagine, that was a tough experience, but it taught me lots of valuable lessons. And I got exposed to good mentorship at about age 18. I got introduced to the insurance business. And, there's a couple of mentors of mine that told me, in America, know your banking and know your insurance. So I did really well early on in the insurance industry. I opened up an insurance business in my early 20s. I'm 32 now. And it's been one of the best things I've ever done. Financial independence, financial strength, business ownership, entrepreneurship. It taught me all those different lessons. And here I am today. I spent the last 3 years writing about my lessons. And that's kind of how you and I got introduced to talk about my book, Patience.
Wow, what a background, Hayk. What is the most dangerous belief an online entrepreneur can have?
Patience, it's a question I ask myself a lot. At the very beginning, people think there's this, we call it the American dream, right? And what is the American dream? A lot of people think move to the United States or, move to a different country. If there's an opportunity, you'll find it. But people think entrepreneurship is just hard work. But what a lot of people don't understand, you could be the hardest working farmer in desert and you will never grow anything. You could be an average farmer in like a really nice soiled wetland and you'll grow lots of trees. So what am I saying with this? There's a misconception of thinking it's just about hard work. I think there has to be mentorship before you do that. You have to find what you need to do first, where you need to be, how to work your efforts. Then you need to work really hard at that specific thing. Just hard work doesn't get you places. You have to know what you're doing. That's why seeking mentorship is huge. And entrepreneurs can't figure everything else on their own. And mentors don't have to be people. That could be books. It could be literature. It could be people you follow, right? So I think that's a danger. We're thinking if we just work hard, things will happen, but we're going to burn ourselves out doing the wrong things at the wrong time. So mentorship is a big piece of entrepreneurship.
Why do you do what you do?
At the very beginning, I think through different phases of life, the why behind what you do changes. At the very beginning, and then it's one of the points I made in my book when I talked about what I thought success was, and a huge misconception about thinking what success was. At the very beginning, I was doing it just for money. We became very poor. We made no money. My father and I slept in the car. We were living in, on people's couches. We had no food at times. So to me, I had this huge void in my heart thinking, if I can become financially stable, I will be successful, right? So I need to make money. So at that point, we did everything possible to make money and to support our family back in Armenia. Well, little I knew, I finally got myself to the point of, making income, and financially, I didn't have any issues. And it was one of the most disappointing experiences of my life. I realized it wasn't money that was going to bring me happiness and success. It was something else. So my life kind of changed at that time. So the why went from money to realizing I need to find what this empty hole in my heart is, because I spent few years, 80, 100-hour weeks sometimes. Sure, I came into my office when it was dark. I would leave it when it was dark. I had a team. We were one of the top offices in production for insurance in the area the first couple of years in the business. So I did really well. But at the same time, I was left very disappointed. And at the time, I remember I had sacrificed my health. I had gained weight. I lost some relationships. I was a single guy, not too many friends. I was all about business. And I did some, self-reflection. And there was a really, really good story, Patience. I think you might have heard of this story, but if you haven't, I'll tell it to you real quick. I read this story in the book, and it was talking about a college professor who went to his students, and he pulled out two empty jars, and he actually filled up both empty jars with golf balls. And he filled up to the top, and then he asks his students in the class, he says, "Do you think these jars are full?" And his students agreed. They're like, "Yeah, the jars are full." So then he pulls out pebbles, and he throws these pebbles into this jar, a bunch of little rock pebbles, and the pebbles fill up the space in this jar between the golf balls. And it fills up to the top. So he asks his students, "Are these jars full now?" And the students say, "Yeah, it's full." Then he pulls out sand, right? He dumps the sand inside these jars, and the sand occupies the space between the golf balls and the pebbles, and he fills up the jars to the top with sand. Now the students are laughing. He's like, "Well, are the jars full now?" So the students are laughing, and they're saying, "Of course." At the very end, he pulls out 2 cups of coffee, and he pours the coffee inside these jars, and the students are laughing because now there was room for coffee too, right? Mm-hmm. He says, just imagine your life is this empty jar, right? It's filled with work and business, which are your golf balls, and then there's family and other issues and health, which is your, pebbles, and then there's, friends and relationships, which is the sand. But no matter how busy you ever get, just know this: you will always have time to grab a cup of coffee with your friends, right? So to me, that was a powerful message. And I realized at the time I was spending all my time and all my efforts towards my business. So I started cutting back some time, and I started spending some time with my friends. And I remember just, a few months into me taking lunch breaks, going for a coffee with a friend, I started going out in the evenings with my buddies and movies and to a club and that kind of stuff. And I realized I was bringing back a lot of joy into my life. It wasn't just about money, it was about my relationships. Now, as I started building more relationships with my peers and I started taking my time away from my business, I realized my business did better because my team realized whenever I'm out, they tend to try certain things that they wouldn't try in front of me. So their skills got sharpened and business got better. I built relationships, and I actually had started working out again. I started spending time on my health. I started dating, and I met my wife, and I got married. I had kids. So fast forward a few years after that, that's when I really in the mirror thought to myself, I truly feel successful because I've got a good balance in life. I've got financially, I'm not the richest guy in the world, but I'm set. I'm not the healthiest guy in the world, but I can do marathons, triathlons. I can race races. I'm not the guy with the most amount of friends, but I've got good quality friends I can count on one hand. I don't have the biggest family, but I've got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids. So at that time, I realized, why do I do what I do? My why became balance between family, fitness, finances, and friendship, which is what I spent 3 years writing about.
Wow. Ooh, thank you for this story as well. Let's put Iman aside. How do you know you are successful?
I don't think I know I'm successful. I think a true successful person is the one that's never satisfied with what they have. And I'm not saying being greedy. I'm saying that you can get as fit and as healthy as you can. But if you feel like you got things figured out, you become a little cocky, right? So you have to always be hungry and trying to figure out your health. You always have to be humble and modest to make your mistakes and admit them. You always have to be coachable to learn new things, and always try to develop your healthy, or one exercise doesn't make you fit. One hardworking day doesn't make you successful. So I think it's a tough question to ask, right? And it's a tough answer, but there is no, I don't think there's you knowing successful. You always have to be open for coaching. You have to stay positive, driven, and always learn new things.
Can anyone be an entrepreneur, or are some people more cut out for it than others?
I used to be a little confused about that specific question because I used to think entrepreneurship is for everyone. I'm gonna have to disagree with myself and say no. And here's why I say no. There's different strengths in different people. Some people have extremely good memories, and they're very good at programming. They're very good at being artists. They're very good at expressing themselves in front of the paper or in front on a book or in front of a computer. And there's some other people that are very good at expressing themselves in front of other people, right? Now, I know you can fake it until you make it, but it's easier. It comes more naturally if you do what you're good at. So that's why I believe that I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs fail in our space because they're getting into I don't want to say the wrong thing, but the thing that doesn't give them passion. So if entrepreneurship wakes you up in the morning, if failure is, I think, one of those things that excites you and gets your heart rate, it makes you want to do things, right? It's probably, but if it scares you, if it's to the point where, it drives more fear than anything else, and you have difficulty dealing with people and problems, there might be something else out there for you. Because I've actually led a lot of people into entrepreneurship to open up their businesses and stuff like that. I've seen some of them fail. And the ones who excelled were the ones who did not care about rejections, the ones who did not care about long work hours, the ones who are dealing with people, activity, and stuff like that. But there's also some people who just don't enjoy that, right? There's a thing called grit. And the definition of grit is doing something long-term with passion, right? As long as you do it with passion long-term, I don't think there's failure. You just got to find what it is. And that's why I believe the ones that I've noticed in the business world and entrepreneurship world that have failed are the ones who require way too much energy for the basic things like handling rejection. To me, if somebody says no to me, I'm okay with that. To some people, they handle rejection like they just got dumped by their parents, right? That's why it's how you can handle rejection. And my business, it's all about getting 10 to 20 no's and rejections per day. And to me and my team,
what have you learned from business as a whole?
What have I not learned from business, right? It's still teaching me a lot of lessons. I'm anything between payroll, motivation, no one cares, work harder. I think that's a really, really tough lesson and a good lesson because a lot of us want to complain about our issues. Here's how tough I have it. Here's how difficult it is for me. But we know that the world, and this is maybe not just the business, but the life, everybody has their own problems, right? We all have excuses, but at the same time, you need to get tougher. Business taught me to be very, very tough because there's been so many times where, this is the beginning phase of my business where I'm sitting down at my desk. It's dark. My team has left. I'm the only one in there. There's some quotas that we're not meeting. I don't have enough money to make payroll next week. And I need to get creative to figure out a way how to make sure I pay my team, I keep the lights on, bring money home, make sure my family's fed, right? So it has really taught me that no one cares. You need to work harder, right? So I think that's a very valuable lesson because there's a big difference between working for somebody else and working for yourself. And you also have to make sure you create work for others. Again, you got to get tougher because no one cares about your complaints as an entrepreneur.
You mentioned about having mentoring before you started your business. What is the most valuable thing your mentors has told you?
Typically, I've found mentors to be very wise and experienced. And often, you become wise and experienced through mistakes, right? There was a really interesting quote I read. This was years ago. It said, how do you become successful? And then the answer is like, you don't make mistakes. It's like, well, how do you not make mistakes? The next answer is like, you make mistakes, right? So I've noticed a lot of mentors have had, I have few. I have like 2-3 people in my life that I can really rely on good advice, right? So one of them, his name is Ali, and he's had his fair share of, failures. There's what I value the most is what not to do. Because I think a lot of younger entrepreneurs, business owners, they're a little bit too much optimistic about everything. So we can make everything work and we think we can take on everything. And that's me, right? So often I call my mentor and I say, look, here's what I have. Here's this idea. Here's that. He does a really good job of dragging me back to reality because he's much older than I am. He's about 20 years older than me. He's seen a thing or two. And mentors have to do a really good job of making sure to give you a sense of direction. That's what we lack. When you're younger and you're, spirited and high energy, you tend to make a lot of mistakes and burn a lot of energy. Mentors should be able to tell you what not to do because sometimes, even though I believe you learn from failure, but there's certain failure you should avoid through mentorship. And mentorship allows you to do that. And that's my definition of what it is to have a good mentor.
What is the most valuable thing you have ever given away?
Again, I think the answer to that question is different between different phases of life, patience. If you asked me back in the day when I thought money was the most important thing, I would say it was money. Lend money to people and so never get it back. But I think at this point, the older and more mature I'm getting, I'm realizing the most valuable thing we have at this time, right? Because it's about TI time, and the more time I spend with people, the more I realize, the less I have health. So I'm becoming very selfish of how I spend my time, and I want to call it Fred. I also believe as long as you give, you will get back with interest, but also you have to give unconditionally. And I think the key word is unconditionally, because a lot of people give and they expect something. Giving as in like you forgive somebody, giving as in you go help somebody. Your friend starts a business, you make calls and try to get them clients, or somebody's in not a good mood, you try to give them your energy and your positivity. You notice you haven't hung out with somebody who can use your positivity, you go hang out with them, right? So all these things that require time. Your friend's moving, go help them move, right? And then somebody's coaching and mentoring, don't ignore them, get on the phone and talk to them. So time aspect, you do it without any condition. So too many people say, I'm going to give, but I'm going to expect something. None of us qualify to the future. So a lot of us give and we don't get anything in return, and we get a little bitter. That's why I think the unconditional giving, even though it's very valuable, it is still better to be a giver than not to. So to give time, I think it's a very, very valuable thing to do for yourself, to give forgiveness, to give, but also don't expect anything in return.
What is one thing that has contributed to your success?
Nothing substitutes good old-fashioned hard work. There's no silver bullet, right? Whether if it's your relationship with your spouse, like it or not, it's hard work. I don't think a relationship works on its own. It's you committing to it. And I believe the reason why we have such high divorce is because we stop trying. Like in America, we have, again, I hear different statistics, but I think 53% divorce rate sounds about right, because that's about half of my friends went through a divorce, right? So we stop trying, or lazy. Really assess, is this the right thing for me? Am I fixing a small problem by committing this person, or am I doing the right thing by marrying them, right? So am I trying to, fix this void, or, health, right? So I can't sleep, get 3-4 hours of sleep. When my kid was born, he was up every 30 minutes to an hour. I would still wake up 5 in the morning. I would get my training in. I would get into the office by 9 o'clock. I did that for years. And my goal was to run a marathon, and it was all hard work. Nobody could do the work for me, right? So I had to wake up, I had to put in miles, eat, put in miles, eat, watch my diet. That was, same thing with my friends. You got to watch your calendar. You got to be able to squeeze in a movie, or figure out ways and times to be able to spend time with the loved ones, business. So again, if I have any room to talk about success, which again, I have a long way to go in my life, but to be able to get there, you're going to have to spend a lot of effort and a lot of time. Again, nothing substitutes good old-fashioned hard work.
What is one thing no one knows about you?
That is a really tough one, Paige. I don't know. I'm an open book. Say, if you're close, everything about me, everything. I'm talking everything from what kind of hobbies I have, what kind of what I do with my business, my philosophy, and again, if you ever read my book, Patience, I have my entire life in there, from misconceptions of to routine to my formula of business meetings and all these different things, right? So I think, and I feel good about saying this, and that I'm an open book, but I don't hide anything from anyone. If people have questions for me, I'm very straightforward, and I think this serves me very well, even though having a big mouth sometimes can back with that, but they're in it then bad. There's some secretive people that creep me out who don't tell me certain things, and I don't appreciate. I actually don't even have friends who are secretive anymore, but I believe it's really hard to trust somebody with secrets. So I've been an open book my whole life.
What grounds you?
Running has been what's been giving me clarity. It's been giving me drive. It's been resetting me. It's been about 6 months ago. So about 6 months, I covered triathlon. So I do a lot more swimming and biking now. Anything that I do physically that has to do with cardiovascular, long term, that dumps endorphins into my bloodstream. I feel really positive and I feel really good. I can't tell you how many times I've had maybe a bad morning or a bad day. As soon as I get some exercise in, I go put 10-mile run. I go do maybe an hour swim. I do maybe 2-hour bike, whatever it is. I can't tell you how I feel afterwards. I want to take over the world. So I think one of my biggest pieces to life that grounds me and motivates me, at least in the last 5 years of my life when I discovered fitness, it has been fitness.
Let's talk about your book, The Power of Mindset. Tell us more about it.
So I think when I talked about what I felt like success was to me and through different phases of my life, to I realized there was one point that I was asked the question, like, "Hey, so talk to us about your success." And I was talking about, well, you first got to figure out your money, right? Because that's what I did. First, I needed to figure out, and so I can, fill this void in my heart of being poor my whole life. So first, you got to figure money, but with time, you can spend on your health, which is your fitness, right? And then with fitness, now you're becoming more positive, outgoing. You spend more time with your peers and friends. This helps you find that special person. You get married, you have kids, then you have your family. So I thought about, this. I'm like, I need to write about this, right? So at the time when I was going through this phase of, getting back in shape and revamping my life and taking my eyes off my business and putting my eyes on myself a little bit, I started writing about it. And the reason why I was writing, really writing about sharing anything, I had a lot of these crazy philosophies, and I just wanted to write a manual. At the time, I couldn't run more than 1 or 2 miles, a few kilometers. So actually, my ankles would swell. I was 250 pounds. I was overweight. So I spent a lot of time walking on a treadmill and walking on a stairmast. At the time, I was just typing stuff in my phone. Literally, I pulled out my iPhone and I started typing pages and pages and pages. And, about saying I was able to start running longer distances. And this is where I had purchased my first marathon ticket 6 months out. I ran the marathon. And then I came back to my office one morning and I pasted all this stuff that I had in my phone into a Microsoft Word document. And I had about 160 to 180 pages of content. So I started editing it, right? And in this book, I had this concept, right? Again, it's financials first, and then it's fitness, and then it's friendship, and then it's family. So I'm talking about this concept of you need to do this in a specific order. I'm like, oh, this book, let me just wrap this up and have a book, right? I have a pretty good philosophy in here. So I finished the writing and I started disagreeing with myself as I started editing this book over and over. And I edited this book probably 100 times. A couple of years in, I'm disagreeing with myself. So I reached out to a few of my friends who've actually finished their PhD programs. They're doctors. And I asked, I know you have to write a dissertation. You have to, have a thesis. You have to defend it. Can I ask you this? Have you ever disagreed with your own theories? Because you have one theory up front, but later when you start writing about it, your theory changes. And they're like, absolutely. Like, why do you think they make us write the dissertation? Because often your theory is just theory until you put it on paper. When you have to defend it and have people reading it, you really start making sense out of your own philosophies and your theories. So, and I started disagreeing with the fact that there's an order, and I came up with the solution to my so-called disagreement with myself. My solution is you do not have an order. You work on the pillar that you're lacking the most first. And what I mean by that is if you're lacking health in your life and there's a monkey on your back telling you you're unhealthy, you suck, you're not eating well, you're not exercising, or there's a monkey on your back telling you you're poor, you got to work hard, you need to open up a business, or your relationship with your spouse and your friend sucks, people are going to leave you, right? So whatever the monkey's on your back, you address that monkey first, right? So whether if it's health, you take care of health first. Whether if it's your relationship with your friends, you take care of that first. And you work in order, and you get to the point where you've got the family, fitness, finance, and friendship balanced. And that's my definition of success. And you do what you can. And sometimes certain things elevate and certain things go down. But then there's no perfect balance in life. You work on whatever needs to be rebalanced at that given time. And that's I believe that was my thesis. And it was more correct than my initial one. And I approached the publishing company with this, and they kind of blew me off. And then finally they asked me for a copy of my manuscript. And they typically get about 10,000 book submittals every year. They approve 100 to 150. And they got back to me in 2 days and they said, I think your book is great. We're going to take it, which was an honoring thing for me. I ended up actually turning down their offer because when I read the contract, I didn't like what these traditional publishers want to do with your book. So I ended up self-publishing, and that's kind of where I led to the 3-year journey of writing, editing some more, hiring editors, and then getting the book on Amazon.
Wow. What is so special about your book? Because I've seen a few books which talks about mindset. So what makes yours unique?
I didn't know until I started getting feedback. So we put the book on Amazon about a month and a half, 2 months ago now. I was very much critical, afraid. I was very vulnerable, and I was not in a place to recommend the book to people because I was afraid if my outside the box thinking is going to be accepted by the world. And I've always had this fear of acceptance, always. I mean, I grew up a reject. I didn't really have many friends. We moved a lot, so I didn't. As soon as we moved again because my construction is go in different places, and we had to find homes and buildings to build. Otherwise, we would be hungry, right? So I've always had this thing that I need to fit in, right? I need patients. I need you to like me, right? I need these people to accept me. I want people to like me. So even though I don't lead your life by what other people think, well, like it or not, I have some kind of a post-traumatic stress disorder about acceptance and new places and people, right? So even though I've gotten over that fear, I still have this void in my heart that I need acceptance, this unreasonable acceptance from people. So imagine me putting my whole life into this book. I had a lot of fear thinking, will people accept me? Right? Will some of my friends who don't know all this stuff in my head, will they read it and be like, wow, you're a weirdo, or this book sucks. Like, you spent 3 years, you don't even know how to write. Up until some very powerful people in my life that I really respect, my mentor, my peers, they started giving me feedback. And a book critic read my book, and the common feedback I'm hearing is they said this was one of the best self-help books they've ever read, and some of them were reading 2 to 3 books a week. And when my mentor told me that this was one of the best books he's read, and how I captured pretty much the whole self-help industry into 300 pages, I can't tell you, patients, how much that boosted my confidence, saying, there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's definitely, millions of good books out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think my book is anything special or unique. The only thing unique about my book is my story, right? And my story comes like a very similar what a lot of movies are made, right? There's the hero, there's the problem, there's how they overcome it, and there's how they live afterwards. And that's kind of, I think there's a unique perspective that it clicks with different kinds of people. Some people might read my story and they're like, okay, that's cool. I like it, I don't like it. And then some people might read my story and they take my lessons and apply it in their life because they can relate more, because it's a different story. And that's how, like, there's a movie called Pursuit of Happiness. Have you ever seen that movie with Will Smith?
Actually, I have.
So that was my life when I became an intern for the company that I work with right now, right? So it was a 9-month-long internship. I was the underdog. I was the youngest guy in there. I had no money. I would avoid hanging out with the guys after class, just because whenever they would leave and go to the bar and go to happy hour to get drinks and food, I had no money. So I would stay and make cold calls out of my cell phone to gather a list of clients that would be working with me when I opened my business 9 months out when I graduated the internship, right? So, and that book really stuck out. The movie really stuck out with me because I could connect more to that story. It really mattered to me. Now, some other people might watch the movie and like it, but not implement some of the lessons from that movie, right? So that's why I think relevance is a big one. Can you relate to the narrator? Can you relate to the story? And again, difference-wise, it's very different because of what I went through, but it's also very similar to most of the other self-help books. They're all the same. Bible talks about the same things. Most self-help books talk about the same thing. The question is, can you relate to the message? If you can implement, you can execute, right? So that's I think the difference between my book and most.
When you started writing this book, who did you write it for? For
myself. And even though I wasn't a full boy, I started writing a book for myself just so I can put my mind onto paper. Because I have a very weird mind. I'd wake up 2 or 3 in the morning with a weird idea or something. I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I got to write that down. So I would send myself emails and I would lose sleep, literally. So I thought to myself, let me just put all this on paper and have a manual for myself. I did not want to publish. I did not want to have a book at the beginning. I just wanted to have my own manual that I can go back to, and it can help me with training my team and helping the other entrepreneurs that call me and then that kind of stuff. Later, once it became a book, I realized I'm writing this book for my next generation, my kids, my wife, family members, people who are close to me, because at this point, I honestly don't even care if the book sells or not. I just care the fact that people close to me read it, they get my philosophy, and one day when my kids grow up and they read the book and they're like, Dad, I appreciate the sacrifices you made. I appreciate the lessons you put in this book. That will suffice the whole purpose of this book. But lately I've been hearing that I need to share these lessons of the book with the world because it's got a lot of valuable information in there. Basically, which is another reason why you and I are talking, right? But outside of me writing it for myself and making sure my children and my family, my close ones read it, I don't have another purpose for it.
I can't wait to read it. Where do we find this and how can we? I'm so excited about the book now. So where can we find this book? How can we connect with you?
I haven't, blasted it anywhere yet. Again, it's still very new. I'm still working on balancing my family, fitness, finance, and friendship. I just bought my Ironman tickets in Canada, May. So I've been still trying to balance out my life, right? So right now I'm spending a lot of time on fitness. So I haven't done much with it. So I didn't have the time to do it, but it is on Amazon. So if you just go type Hayk Tadevosyan or The Power of Mindset, it's available on Amazon. We had some issues with Prime. It's available.
Thank you. So, clan, there will be more from Hayk in a moment. If you are listening on one of the many podcasting platforms rather than my website and you are encouraged by Hayk's journey, go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for a bonus portion of the interview. The Online Success Journey is a wonderful membership community built for people searching for the path to success. We are one big clan and you can be part of this community for free. Once you have joined the clan, click on part 2 of Hayk's journey or over 100 other journeys that are available and learn how you can find the right path for your own online success journey. That's a wrap, clan. Remember, success is a journey. Patience and Hayk.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com, filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.